Hello there. Welcome back to Tales from Tosche Station. Hey guys, it's been a minute. Sorry. Life's been hectic and I just hadn't got to review Andor yet. I've seen it all. It's probably the best Star Wars we've got down to Disney in a very long time. Really enjoyed this entire last season, specifically the last 3 episodes. I will get into that. But first, let me get this intro out of the way. Hey, Chewie, do me a favor. Punch this thing. Let's get into it. All right. So, we open with the Ferrex gong notifying 1 year later. And now we are at 3 BBY. And things have moved on a little bit. We open on the first on this first episode with Bix having a PTSD nightmare. She is sleepwalking and sees the doctor that tortured her at the end of season 1. And this has been a recurring theme it's specifically in the first 3 episodes. That's the first thing we see. We see that she was also still having nightmares then. So these nightmares we still see are plaguing her to the point to where she's, like I said, she's PTSD sleepwalking, and Cassian has to stop her. And he talks her off, essentially talks her off a cliff. And we find out they're in one of Luthen's safe houses in Coruscant. They've been moved to Coruscant, and then we move to Gorman, where we see Cyril has been appointed a job to oversee the operation there. It's more of like a corporate level, like government job, like a corporate government job. It's pretty cushy. Seems like it's got pretty good benefits. So I can see why he's there. And I'll get into this later, but unbeknownst to him, he is being played like a fiddle here, and he doesn't know it yet. That's something I'm gonna do in these episodes. In this breakdown, I'm gonna talk about things that happen in the later episodes. And really, these 3 episodes specifically, the second set is just set up for the Gorman massacre and even everything that moves forward. So, this first episode, essentially, we see Cyril starts getting cozy with the Gorman rebels, which is kind of a play on the French Revolution, or not the French Revolution, the French Rebellion in World War II. That's kind of the vibes that I got off of the Gorman front. That's what I got off of it. The language the language that they speak, that they created for the show, is based off of, I think, French, some German, some Slavic dialects, all kind of mixed in together in one bowl. So we see Cyril starts getting cozied up with the Gorman front to basically kind of get them started to do stuff without him realizing he's doing it. That's what Deidre wants him to do. That's why he's there. He doesn't know that yet. And I actually have a theory that once he finds out all this, what's going on, that he's actually going to flip to the rebels. That's what I thought was going to happen. But we'll keep talking about it. Don't you worry. And throughout this episode, we see the Gorman front just kind of start getting more intel, start figuring things out, and Luthen actually sends Andor to Gorman without Bix, leaves Bix there to kind of do some intel as to what exactly the Empire is doing on Gorman. So as Andor's there on Gorman, getting his intel, we find that Luthen goes to visit Bix to essentially see if she's a weak link in his rebel in his rebel cell, and he finds out that she's been using, and just like tells her to get off of the stuff because the the dreams get worse as you continue to take the drugs that she's taking. And we also see through in the episode that starts to Will starts to align himself with with um Saul Guerrero and his group. And funny enough, the base that they're set up on is the same base that the Resistance sets up on in The Force Awakens and at the beginning of The Last Jedi. I did find that interesting. And on top of that, this episode we also see what happens to Saul and why he's using that breathing apparatus that we see him using in Rogue One. Essentially, he's inhaling jet fuel. That's basically what it is. It's the fuel that they put into the ships for them to make space travel possible. He's literally inhaling jet fumes. So the end of the first episode, the end of this episode is uh basically Will inhaling that jet fuel to kind of symbolically like start the fire within him to be more of a fighter. And that's kind of broad strokes of what happens in that first episode. In the next episode, as I think I might have got a few things mixed up. He actually uh Andor actually goes to Cassian uh actually goes to Gorman in the sixth episode. No, the fifth episode. And he starts getting in with the he starts getting the he starts getting in with the Gorman rebels and learns that they're planning to intercept a weapons shipment, and he basically tells them that they're too experienced and they shouldn't do it. And that's when he gets Val and Cinta in on this thing to get them a little bit more experience. Two operatives that he knows can get the job done. And while all this is going on, Cyril goes back to Deidre, who is in Coruscant, and their relationship's a little problematic. We start to see that when he's back there, and I'll get more into it. during the massacre, because that's really when things come to a head. And the really big thing in this episode that happens is Clea has to covertly remove a bug that's in that's in a showroom that everyone's gonna be at. It's this big like gala party that politicians and ISB agents are gonna be at, and she has to covertly remove this bug while they're all in the room talking, and it's actually a very good back and forth between Mon and Krennic. It's honestly one of my favorite scenes in the show as far as two characters just verbally jousting. It's the writing on the show. Tony Gilroy is just he's really good at what he does, and so things things get set up for for the next episode for the heist, and during the heist, and during the heist, uh, they're very meticulous on how they plan this thing. But tells them no weapons, don't use any weapons. Let's just worry about getting the shipment, and then we go from there. And well, that's not exactly how things work. Uh, all hell breaks loose. One of the Gorman rebels, I think his name is Sam, smuggles in a blaster, shoots a civilian. That, of course, alerts them to their presence, and all hell breaks loose. They do manage to get a good handful of firearms out of the way, but uh, Cinta dies in the process. She gets killed, and yeah, she gets killed. And the big thing that happens in this episode, at least to me, is Bix gets her revenge. Her and Cassian take out the actually infiltrate the doctor's operation that he's getting ready to set up. The ISB has given him more clearance and basically is turning his little torture thing that he did in season one into this whole giant operation. And Bix, well, to quote Michael Jordan, took that personally. And in one of the coolest scenes in I think that Disney's ever made, straps him to the same torture chair that she got in, puts on the headphones of those I think it was the children screaming, turns it on, leaves, and as she's walking away, and Cassian joins her. Then they blow the building up. So he's not suffering for very long. She just wanted to kill this guy, which I kind of get. So that was to that point, episode 6 was my favorite episode. And then, well, the rest of the season happens. So we go to the next batch of episodes, and in the first episode we hear the Ferrex gong. We are now to BBY. And the first thing we see Yavin, and it's very evident that Yavin is starting to grow, starting to get more, starting to become what we see in A New Hope. And throughout this episode, especially when we get to Gorman, we start seeing that uh the call to action here is, sorry, stepped over this. So Will approaches Cassian with a mission. Assassinate assassinate Deidre on Gorman. Pretty straightforward. Him and Will takes it. They go to Gorman. But not before they head out, he sees Cassian sees a force healer for a wound that he got on his right shoulder, on the back of his right shoulder, on a mission that he recently was on. And during this exchange, the force healer essentially lays out his destiny and says that you have a you have a much larger role to play in this whole thing. And then him being the skeptic that he is, he just kind of yeah, thank you, and he kind of leaves. And then we go back to the Gorman front uh on in Gorman, and Cyril's starting to piece things together, that things aren't exactly how they seem. And I'm just gonna kind of skip through this episode. I mean, it's just really set up for what happens in the next episode, which I'll be honest is my favorite episode of this is the my favorite episode of the series. Um we see in the next episode, we see the Gorman massacre. Uh the rest of these episodes, I'm just gonna kind of talk about the big tentpole events that happen in each episode. So we see the Gorman massacre in his next episode, and it is honestly a little uneasy to watch because this feels like it feels like something that we have seen in real life, and I think that was kind of the point, to kind of blur the lines between fiction and things that have happened in real life. Uh, I think, I mean, we all know this. The empire was based off of Nazi Germany, and the the way that the Gorman massacre begins is they've essentially locked off the courtyard. The entire citizenry of Gorman, or at least a decent chunk of them, this uh are in the courtyard, and they bring out um stormtroopers in riot gear, riot cops. They've got snipers set up on the set up on the buildings. It's absolutely insane. So as tensions are mounting, while this is going on, uh, the Gorman citizenry are peacefully protesting. They're singing essentially their national anthem, and it all starts with a Deidre gets off a call and basically says, "Fire at will, proceed, get him out of here." And it starts with a sniper taking out one of his own that's on the ground. Friendly fire, dude gets killed, and then the commander on the ground says open fire, and they start laying waste to everybody. The first three people that get gunned, that get killed are there's a guy with a flag on a on a flagpole. He gets shot, and then the next two people that we see get killed are two females. One that's just in the crowd gets shot in the chest. The other one is turning around and running away, and she gets shot in the back. And then it's just pure chaos. It is absolute pure chaos. I mean, people get the Empire just starts mowing people down left, right, and center. They even get KX droids to start clearing people out. One of those KX droids happens to be our lovable K2SO. I'll get to that in a second. And uh, one of the uh, one of the Gorman rebels, I believe her name is Eva. Please correct me in the comments if I said that wrong. Um, she dies pretty unceremoniously. One of these KX droids sees her, grabs her, and chunks her. And she meets the ground. Gravity does the rest. And I just like I said, this Gorman massacre is brutal. I mean, I can see why this was a rallying call for the rebellion. Why this coalesced the entire galaxy against the Empire because of what they did to these people. And in the middle of all this, we've got Cassian trying to kill Deidre. And also in the middle of all this, before all the chaos happens, Cyril actually approaches Deidre and he's connected all the dots. He's figured out he's figured out he's asking questions of what's really going on here. Uh what are they mining for? Just like he interrogates her and it gets a little uncomfortable. It even gets to the point where he starts she starts to choke her and like he honestly tries to kill her because he finds out that been a puppet he's been a puppet by the Empire this entire time, which kind of breaks his entire worldview. And I was talking to a friend about this, that he believed Cyril believed in the Empire, that the Empire itself was wholly good. Holistically, it was a good thing that they were doing. Fully believed in it. He believed in the cause. And Deidre, knowing that, knowing how malleable he was, and knowing exactly how disgusting and how bad the Empire is, just she doesn't care. Used him, and it comes back to bite her in more ways than one. I'll get to that in a second. And so Cyril is like in the middle of all this, kind of walking around like a zombie until he turns, I believe, to his right and sees Cassian, the guy that he has been looking for like 3 years at this point. His face is seared into his mind. He knows what he looks like, and he wants to kill him. And honestly, it's a brutal fight scene. You kind of forget that this is happening in the middle of a war zone, and it's brutal. They're getting thrown all over the place. The building's getting shot up. There's grenades going off. It's a pretty spectacular fight. I'm not gonna lie. And then at the very last minute, Cyril has Cassian in his crosshairs. He has him. He is about to shoot Cassian and kill him. And the thing that stops him is Cassian looks up at him and says, "Who are you?" and that breaks him. And then one of the Gorman front like head guys shoots Cyril and kills him. In his last moments, he had the guy he was looking for like 3 years in his crosshairs. Cassian didn't even know who he was. That breaks Cyril on every single level, and then he's gone. So the Empire essentially paints this as a rebellion quelled, and things get a little crazy in the next episode. So, in the next episode, we open up with the Gorman senator being hauled away from the Senate, and the next thing we see when the camera pans, he says, it's my people. It's my people today. It will be your people tomorrow." And the camera pans to Bell Organa. And why I think that is significant is because I think Bell Organa is the actual leader of the Empire. And Alderaan wasn't just a random act of violence, just to demonstrate the power of the Death Star in A New Hope. At that point, Tarkin knows that Leia's lying, that her father is the leader of the rebels. So he's targeted. They didn't just blow up they just I almost said Andor. They didn't blow up. They did not blow up Alderaan just to show the might of the Death Star. No, they did it to get the rebel leader off the board. And we see in this episode that we see Mon Mothma's speech in the Senate. It's a more fleshed out version of what we see in Rebels, but I think those two speeches are two different speeches. I think the one we see in the Senate and the one we see in the one we see at the beginning of the Rebels episode are two different ones. I think the one on the hologram that we see on Rebels is when she's already off of Coruscant. And I think we see and then what we see in Andor is the prelude to that speech. And throughout this episode, Luthen basically meets up with Mon Mothma and says, once you make the speech, you got to get out of here. And she tells him that her cousin, I'm blanking on his name right now, again, tell me in the comment, has been working for him since the wedding to keep her safe, to make sure interested parties stayed away from her. And throughout the course of the episode, like he tells Mon Mothma that Bell's extraction team has a rat in it, has a mole in it. Don't trust this team. And tells her that the person that you need to trust is going to come up to you and say, "I have friends everywhere." And then we get a very tense, like spy thriller episode where Mon Mothma gives her speech. I think it's something that would make her old friend Padme very proud, and that's something that I wish they would have done is kept Padme alive, and she would have taken more of the role of what we see Mon Mothma do. But that's just me. Maybe if Padme's alive and being more outspoken, Vader doesn't turn as much. But we're getting into another area. I don't have time. I don't have time to break that down right now. Um, so I think the speech that she gives is one of the best speeches, one of the best monologues I think we get in the show, and one of the best monologues we get in all of Star Wars. She basically calls out the Emperor, and calls him a monster for like what he is, and the ISB managed to cut the feed, and then it, Andor finds her in the corridor, tells her that sentence, "I have friends everywhere," and then it's just a spot, get her off the planet, which they do, but it's pretty crazy. So he gets her off planet, and it's just wild. That episode was insane. And then the last two episodes might be some of the best Star Wars. I think the last three episodes are probably some of the best Star Wars storytelling in Star Wars that we have ever seen. So, in the first episode, in the well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Barracks Gong one BBY. So now everything must lead. Everything must lead to Rogue One. And how does that happen? Well, Bonnie Young. That's how. He pages he presses the big red button, not just a big red button, the big red button, as in break this if you find something insane. And he breaks it, he presses it, and he tells Luthen that that they're terraforming Gorman to get lens coating for the Death Star. He tells him about the, he tells him about the Death Star. Tells him that what they're doing on Jeddah, they're actually mining for kyber crystals, and that Galen Erso is the center of all of this. And well, he tells all this to Luthen. Luthen kills him. He walks off, and Deidre finds Axis after all these years. Finally finds him, and well, Luthen isn't going to take that sitting down, so he acids the radio that him and Clea have been using for all these years. Stabs himself, tries to kill himself, and Deidre not wanting to let him go again. I'll get into that in a second. That is her weakness, and in my opinion, that is how the entire empire gets brought down. So this episode is essentially just Clea going to find going to find Luthen in the hospital, and we get a bunch of flashbacks in this episode to how Clea and Luthen meet, about their complicated relationship, how it's very transactional, if that makes sense. And The last flashback we see is actually a bridge bombing on Naboo of all places to kind of get the Emperor's attention, which I think it probably did. And this episode, um, we see Luthen die. Luthen, she essentially pulls the plug on the respirator, and we see Luthen die. And then in the next episode, it's gets crazy. So, uh, Clea is now in the safe house that Bix and Andor were in, and with all this happening, she's sending out an SOS to Cassian to come get her. And with all this, Cassian basically lies and says, I'm taking a test flight. Him Will, uh, K2SO, and one of his buddies that was on the prison planet with him goes uh, goes to Coruscant to get her. And while this is all happening, Deidre gets grilled. Let me just say that. And so does the Maester from Game of Thrones. I can't think of his name right now. Partagast. That's his name. They both get grilled, trying to figure out what exactly happened here. And I'm going to be skipping ahead a little. I'm going to be skipping around a little bit. But Partagast essentially gets handed a pistol. He shoots himself, and then Deidre gets interrogated by Krennic, basically asking, "Who else knows? Why the crap am I here?" She says, "Well, the Death Star," and we find out that, and this is where I'm going to go into my theory. The whole reason that the Empire gets brought down is because Dedra Meero was careless. She was so fixated on trying to find Luthen, so obsessed with access that she got sloppy. Luthen gets her admin creds, as it were, and finds everything about the Death Star, where it is, where it's being built, what resources it needs, who's making it, and it's just a mess. So Krennic interrogates her, throws her in the brig. Cassian and Will manage to get Clea out. Manage to get Clea. And this is where we start seeing the Empire start making little mistakes that cause their downfall in A New Hope. That's something I was noticing in these episodes, that they tried to stop the leaks. I mean, Partagast gets killed, Deidre gets thrown in prison, but information's already out there. So in the last episode, they have to verify what Luthen has told them. And Cassian is fighting to get them to get the rebels to believe Luthen, and they just don't want to do it because it's Luthen of all people, the guy that for the last 5 years has been a thorn in their side. They can't trust him. They think he's crazy, and the fact that he sent his daughter, essentially, she wouldn't be in Yavin if she didn't have some like world breaking information, and she does. And all I'm going to say about this last episode is it's a giant, just a giant prelude to Rogue One. The first scene that we see Andor in, we see Cassian in Rogue One, is this mission that they sent him on to verify the guy that he meets in the first scene of Rogue One verifies all the information that he knows, that it's a planet killer, that Galen Urso is building the thing, just all the information that he learned from Clea. He gets confirmation in the first scene of Rogue One, and then it just goes from there. So Rogue One is essentially the actual series finale for Andor, and I'm done breaking down the episode. I'm just gonna have my thoughts now, and I just can't say enough. Tony Gilroy, the way that he crafted this to make it all fit into the greater ethos of Star Wars, it's amazing. Because now, with all this in play, in just a couple days from this episode, maybe 72 hours at most, the Death Star is going to be destroyed. I would like to see the actual timeline between the last episode and the destruction of the Death Star. It can't be more than 3, 4 days at most. And all of this happened because of Luthen. And honestly, it's because Deidre just got sloppy. She got too obsessed. And that's what causes the Empire's downfall. I really enjoyed this series. I want to go back and watch it in a couple months after things have cooled down, because honestly, it's just been the episodes are amazing, but there's just a lot of info to intake. So if I missed some stuff, just please let me know, down below in the comments. But that's all I've got right now, guys. And next week we will be talking about Tales of the Underworld. Yes, I know I haven't seen it yet. Yes, I know it's been about a month. But like I said, I've been very busy. So I haven't had a lot of time dedicated to a lot of stuff, but I promise that's coming to an end starting next week. So until then, may the force be with you guys.